Do you have the votes? Do you have the votes?
After 7 years of talking about it, Republicans are facing a major test today on whether they have the votes to dismantle Obamacare.
We have been promising the American people that we will repeal and replace this broken law because it's collapsing and it's failing families. We're proceeding.
Republicans remain deeply divided, duking it out into the night behind closed doors. A GOP source saying some 30 members spoke out in favor of the bill, trying to unite the party and rally support before today's vote.
This was a very intense family discussion, and it was principled, it was emotional, it was robust.
Only one Republican in that meeting speaking out against the bill, but many have previously indicated their no votes.
So we have to get it right, not get it done fast, and I thought the bill misses the mark.
I am a no vote, and I'm concerned that this legislation does not lower premiums.
Sources say the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, who's been staunchly against the bill despite receiving multiple concessions from the White House, is telling his members to vote their conscience.
We are trying to get another 30 to 40 votes that are currently in the no category to yes. Once we do that, I think we can move forward with passing it on the House floor.
Those concessions announced earlier this week mainly focus on repealing essential health benefits from Obamacare, a move they say will lower premiums. A week's worth of wrangling providing more bad news for the bill. The Congressional Budget Office's most updated estimates of the GOP plan will cut deficit savings in half to $150 billion over 10 years. And result in 24 million more uninsured Americans in 2026. That estimate does not include the most recent changes to the bill, changes that would give more power to states to determine what they consider to be essential benefits and provide $15 billion to states to use for mental health, substance abuse, and infant and maternity care.
So the next step now is that the bill goes to the House Rules Committee. It has the authority to consider legislation through Monday. So there are a number of things that could happen, likely debate these amendments and then go to the full House today. They could also delay the process, or they could let it go completely if they believe that the bill is doomed. My source is saying they believe that it will go today to the full House. Chris Allison.
Suzanne, thank you very much. Let's discuss this big day with our panel. We got Jason Johnson, politics editor at The Root, professor of politics and journalism at Morgan State University. Ron Brownstein, the professor, CNN senior political analyst and senior editor for The Atlantic, and A.B. Stoddard, associate editor and columnist for Real Clear Politics. Professor Brownstein, you have an on-point article out today. One of the new offers within this bill to sweeten the pot, so to speak, is, hey, we're going to remove the mandate on insistence of coverage on certain things. It will lower your premiums. You peel back that canard this morning. Why isn't it as good as it sounds? If I don't need it, I don't pay for it. Yay.
Right. The problem is, if you eliminate the essential benefits, what you are essentially doing is saying that the only people who will buy some of these key areas of coverage, mental health coverage, substance abuse coverage, particularly maternity coverage, are the people who are most likely to actually use it. And that undermines the principles of insurance. And what that does, what that did before the ACA and what all experts agree it would do after the ACA is it would make that kind of coverage either unaffordable or simply unavailable. If the only people who are buying maternity coverage are those who are expecting to have children, insurers simply cannot create a risk pool for that kind of market. So in the same way that one of the biggest arguments against the initial bill was that it imposed an age tax because it would significantly raise costs for older people with greater health needs while potentially lowering them for younger, healthier people, this revised version of the bill, I think, is going to be very vulnerable to the argument that it creates a mommy tax because it does significantly raise the cost of insurance, if it is available at all, for women in their childbearing years. And you have to ask yourself, can Susan Collins, can Lisa Murkowski, can Shelley Moore Capito vote for that bill? And as a result, when the president says he is done negotiating, that cannot be true. That cannot be true because he is just beginning to negotiate with the Senate, even if it survives the House today.
Well, that's very interesting, Ron and Jason. There you go. It's been pretty fascinating to watch President Trump's deal-making playbook.
Yes.
You know, so you've seen charm, you've seen strong arm, and now you see the ultimatum.
Yes.
Where he says, I'm done. I'm done. You know, you have to be willing to obviously walk away from any deal if that's your leverage. And it sounds like that's what he's using now.
I think that's what he's using, but he's also got his golden parachute, which let's make sure Breitbart and everybody else is attacking Ryan in case this doesn't work. But Alice and Chris, the most basic thing is this, and any person who's ever sold anything, whether it's Girl Scout cookies or legislation, knows this. You can't let them go home. Right? He couldn't let members of Congress go home this weekend and have a vote on Monday. They were going to go home to their constituents. They were going to hear that this is bad news. So this is as much desperation on the part of the White House as it is a negotiating tactic.
AB, what are you hearing? Because, look, the big aspect of this is timing, right? They want it done now. People were telling them to wait. They said no. What are you hearing about what they feel about the ability to force it through? And if not, what happens?
Well, I never underestimate the ability for something to happen at the last minute. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes cajoling, even without earmarks, even without the ability to give a sweetener to a member for their district, a new, bridge or tunnel or something. There is always a means to apply political pressure, and particularly that this is just Trump's first big legislative push, and they need to unite as a party. So there could be enough votes, and they could squeak by one. I never ever discount that. That said, timing is really key, and Jason's right. I mean, in the next 10 days or so, they're going home for the Easter recess. They really have a do-or-die calendar deadline here, because that could just really end. Opposition will harden. Those town halls will intimidate the members, really on both sides. I mean, it's going to be very, very controversial, even for conservative Republicans coming to members' districts saying you promised that you would repeal this, let alone, the independents and Democrats who are upset about it. So it's really going to be it's a do or die weekend. I think it's going to be hard to push it into next week. They wanted to clear the House floor and the Senate by April 7th. Now we can see that that's impossible. But I would imagine that if it slips past the first couple of days of April, it's probably dead.
Go ahead, Ron.
I agree. The history, to A.B.'s point, the history is that particularly in the Newt Gingrich era and the Tom DeLay era, Republicans in the House found a way to get their bills through what seemed to be impossible odds, the Medicare bill under George W. Bush, where they kept the vote open for so many extra hours. But there's one thing, but there is a difference here, which is that they know before they cast this vote that the bill as written is not going to pass the Senate. And so, I mean, it kind of looks in some ways more like the BTU, the energy tax of Bill Clinton in 1993, or the cap and trade carbon emission bill in 2009 under President Obama, where they asked the House to vote take a very difficult vote for a bill that they knew was not going to become law in the fashion that they passed it. And so you ask yourself, if you are a member in a swing district or even in an ideological position, why do you want to go out on a limb for a vote that has a bill that has a 16% approval rating today for a president with an approval rating under 40 if you know that what you vote for is going to be attacked at home and not become law? That is asking a lot.
Jason.
And it's even more risky. You have to look at the context. Out of 435 members of Congress, only 192 of these members were there in 2010. They don't even know how dangerous it could be, but they've seen that people who were there before lost in the next race, had trouble, had people run against them. We don't have a lot of institutional experience right now. So these guys, they're looking at the numbers, they're looking at their constituents, they're looking at the fact that it's not going to pass in the Senate. They're hearing the Koch brothers and the Heritage Foundation say, we will primary someone against you if you vote for this. This is a really risky bill for the president to push.
Well, remember, though, what they do know coming in is that saying that something sucks is easy, right? Any jackass can kick down a barn. It takes a good man or woman to build one.
Exactly.
I did not make that up. That's why it sounds so good. So if this is the hard part.
Right.
Is it better than Obamacare? Do you keep the people covered? Is it really cheaper? And is it cheaper for the people who don't have the money? That's easy to say, tough to do, and we're seeing that play out in real time, and the polls are reflecting it. You got 56% of voters in the new Quinnipiac poll among the disapprove. So 56 overall disapprove. But in party, the GOP, you only have 41%. You got a huge block of undecided. And you have on top of that, Professor Brownstein, the new CBO score, same as the old CBO score. They put a little bit of money back in, but they're still pulling a lot of money out of the plan. So the savings have gone down a little bit. But for all the spin and all the access versus coverage and coverage versus care spin, Millions are not going to have health care that have it now, and that's a big pill to swallow.
And not only that, not only will millions not have health care, the health care that people have will be hollowed out compared to what they have now. There's no question. I mean, I talked to a wide variety of experts who explain that if you don't require these essential benefits, it makes it hard for any insurer to offer comprehensive coverage, because basically the risk is that only the people who need the comprehensive coverage will buy it. Again, that violates the principle of insurance, that you have to blend, you have to pool the risk between people who are highly likely and less likely to need the service. So it may be that it may be unavailable at any cost for people who have older people with bigger health needs. And by the way, that is fundamentally off-brand for Donald Trump. I mean, one of the core things is that he was going to protect older working Americans. He wants to do that in his budget with Medicare, but this health care bill hammers them. So that may explain some of his reluctance to fully embrace it.
Quick wrap, A.B. Stoddard, what's the % chance that it passes today?
Oh, you put me on the spot.
You're the smartest one on the panel. What do you got?
Oh, no. I'm going to go with 50-50 because I can really see why it's doomed, and I can see why they have to pull it out.
There you go.
I mean, what Trump doesn't understand, Chris, but what the members on the Republican side do is that if you don't get a heavy lift out in the first couple months, you're not going to have it. Those same members told me in 2009, every week we can push Obama's health care off past August is so critical, and they did that. They pushed it till 2010. It became a political catastrophe for Democrats, and so they've got to do it now.
Okay, panel, stick around. We have many more questions for you.